G'day fearmongers, here is something a bit different for the end of the year. We've got an exclusive News Fighters podcast from Dylan Behan to wrap up the year. Dylan, I'm sure many of you know who have come to our live shows. He's our DJ for Irrational Fear, but he's also a former editor at Media Watch. So he knows a lot about what's happened in the news because he's had to sit through it day in, day out. So it is very exciting to have this episode of News Fighters to end the year on the Irrational Fear feed. I hope you like it. It's always very good. If you want to support Irrational Fear, head on over to patreon.com/A-Rational-Fear, and you can sign up for as little as the price of a cup of coffee in Perth. Happy Christmas, everyone. We will be dropping new Rational Fear episodes in the new year, including, I think we've just added a Sydney live show in February at the Parramatta Riverside. So that is going to be an election special. So hang in there, stay tuned for that. Sign up to the email list at irrationalfear.com for when we launch that one. So without further ado, here is Dylan Behan in this episode of News Fighters.
This is News Fighters, where we fight the news so you don't have to. With Dylan Behan.
Yes, hello, fighterers. Welcome to a special one-off 2024 year in review episode of the News Fighters podcast. We're back. I'm your host, Dylan Behan, the Kamala Harris of wacky news clips. And stick around because later on in the show, we're blessed to have our old mate Stefan Pazur back to wrap up the year in showbiz and sport.
It smells so good.
And yes, getting straight into the year that was, and looking back, I think there's two small facts that sum up 2024. The first one,
2024 is set to be the biggest global election year ever.
Yes, it was the biggest year for elections ever, and in a case of acute synchronicity, the Macquarie Dictionary word of the year was
enshittifcation.
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 Yes, most of the world went to the polls, and yet, somehow, the world got shitter. And nowhere was that more obvious than in the US election, where this kid summed up the mood of the nation.
What do you think about Kamala Harris?
She sucks.
She sucks? Why?
Because I hate her.
Yes, and it's no surprise that Joe Biden lost the nomination when he tried to court the youth podcast vote by saying things like this.
Are you a Zionist?
Yes.
Better luck next time. Meanwhile, in the UK, some Conservative MPs were so desperate to get out of power, they could barely hide it.
Only the Conservative Party can stand for freedom and sort out the problems that we face.
What do you want to do if you're not an MP?
Skydiving, motorcycling, fast catamaran sailing.
Are you sure you want to do those dangerous sports? I mean, have you seen what you guys did to the NHS? Anyway, if we tally up all the global elections, in India, a racist one, in America, a racist one, in Russia, well, that doesn't really count as an election, and then in the UK, they had this wordsmith win.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages.
All right, that's enough about global politics. Let's get to counting down the year at home, starting in January, when Prime Minister Anthony Albanese went to the tennis and simultaneously rejigged some tax cuts, leading to this great summary from Nine's Charles Croucher.
Centre stage on the world stage, about to be upstaged over stage 3 changes.
And opposition leader Peter Dutton immediately attacked the tax changes, which gave more money to middle and lower income earners.
The opposition has labelled it vote buying ahead of a looming Victorian by-election.
He's a smart political operator. I think he's recognised that there are people on lower and middle incomes in Dunkley.
Dutton was absolutely incensed that Albanese would try and win over, get this, a majority of voters in a democracy. The nerve of him. What is he trying to do? Win? Anyways, moving on to February, in which we faced an unprecedented crisis, which definitely brought back the 2020 vibes with news reports like this.
Alarm bells are ringing right now across the state.
For the moment, we have 22 confirmed sites.
A primary school will stay shut for at least another 2 weeks.
They're still decontaminating.
The focus is increasing the task force so contact tracing can be complete.
Yes, that's right. Infection sites and contact tracing were back. But thankfully, it wasn't COVID 2.0 or Ebola 2024. It was much lamer.
20 sites with asbestos confirmed so far, parks and a school.
Oh, great. Now the housing crisis / asbestos contamination crisis means you can't even sleep in the park anymore. But at least we got a new slogan for our number plates.
We have become the asbestos state.
Take that, feel the power of Canberra. And then in March, Australian culture took over the world as the Rugby League debuted in Las Vegas. And didn't they do a good job of winning over the locals?
Do you know what rugby league is?
Rugby league? Of course. It's a league for rugby. How about the New Zealand Black? All black.
Yes, millions well spent there, NRL. Hope you do a better job in Papua New Guinea. Ugh. Moving on to April now, in which we got this great insight from today's Karl Stefanovic, which showed his deep and unique understanding of the complex situation in the Middle East.
But separating Hamas and a Palestinian state is like kind of separating the milk and the dark chocolate and the Cadbury top deck. I mean, it's just about impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why he gets paid the big bucks, all right. Can Channel 9 just please give this guy a comedy show or a game show or something and leave the news to someone else, please? Moving on to May, which is budget time, and thankfully, everyone got some cost of living relief from Labor.
Every household, regardless of income, will receive $300 off their energy bills.
And of course, once again, Peter Dutton was absolutely incensed that Labor was out trying to, get this, win over voters.
The government wants to buy itself an interest rate reduction coming up to the election.
Yes, Dutton hated the egregious vote buying so much he couldn't help but immediately support it.
Pressed on whether the coalition would support it?
We will.
But that doesn't mean he liked everything in Budget 2024.
There are no new freeways, no road widenings, no new car parks at train stations.
Yes, because we all know how much our lives have been improved by all the train station car parks the coalition promised yet failed to build during their last 3 terms. I mean, who needs tax cuts or cheaper power when you can just have a pork barrel car park that never gets built? Everyone wins. Anyways, Dutton was back with a vengeance in June.
Tonight, Peter Dutton goes nuclear.
Peter Dutton goes nuclear.
Peter Dutton goes nuclear.
Yes, that's right. Dutton announced an entirely new nuclear energy industry for Australia, which will, let me get this straight, help with the cost of living.
When we talk to pensioners who this winter, under this government, will either heat or eat, but not both.
Yes, and under nuclear energy, pensioners could definitely feel the heat up to 2,400 degrees Celsius if there's a meltdown. Whew, definitely won't be needing a hot water bottle then. And all the Liberals rushed to embrace this nuclear energy future, just like their Dunkley by-election candidate did in March.
We need to have an open conversation about nuclear power. We need to have a conversation about every single energy source.
We're happy to have it in Dunkley.
Look, that's a long time away.
Yes, the Liberals want nuclear so long as it's not in their backyard, and Dutton's done so much research he can't even pronounce the backyards it's already in.
Because of nuclear power, residents in Ontario, Canada.
Meanwhile, Labor Treasurer Jim Chalmers weighed in with some delicate and nuanced analysis.
It might be the dumbest policy ever put forward by a major political party.
Whew, tell him what you really think, Jim. Meanwhile, the media wasn't on board much either.
But having 2 plants up and running by 2037 is ambitious, in the same way me wanting to compete in the pole vault at the Brisbane Olympics is ambitious. Sure, it's possible, but you wouldn't want to bet on it.
I don't know, us Aussies do love a punt. Tell you what, Charles, if you can get that up on one of the betting apps by this afternoon, I'll wager $10 on it. And if you're wondering what Dutton's thinking was behind this huge nuclear policy, well, I'm pretty sure it's to stop his leadership going nuclear after the next election.
I'm very happy for the election to be a referendum on energy, on nuclear.
Yes, because then nuclear can get the blame if Albo wins instead of your complete lack of journal empathy and policy ideas about what to do to fix the cost of living. Dutton 2028. Anyways, moving on, and in July, the world faced a different kind of meltdown.
We begin tonight with an unprecedented catastrophe.
Yes, and what was this unprecedented catastrophe? Plague, famine, pestilence, apocalypse, a new leg of the Eras tour? Nope, none of that. It was computers freezing up.
What's being described as the blue screen of death, effectively locking people out of their computers.
Yes, that's right. The crisis was a blue screen of death stopped us all from doing some work on a Friday afternoon. Oh, the humanity. But that didn't stop some members of the public from overreacting.
Whatever you do, don't call 000 to tell them that your computer is down.
What? Don't call 000? Who am I meant to call when my Monkey Island freezes up on my 386? Crime Stoppers? I think not. All in all, this tech fail hitting Australia first wasn't too bad because it meant tech wizards could go on the news and dole out sage advice like this.
I think you just got to be patient, maybe sit back, open a bottle of wine and relax. There's nothing you can do. I'd say call it a day.
Which is also the same advice given to anyone in Australia trying to do business every year after December 20.
And relax, there's nothing you can do. I'd say call it a day.
All right, moving on, and I know Anzac Day is in April, but that didn't stop it from becoming big news in New South Wales in July and August this year.
Our patriotic Premier has demanded more respect be shown to our veterans and the sanctity of Anzac Day.
Okay, some more sanctity to honour our fallen diggers. What's the plan?
Large retailers in New South Wales, including supermarkets, will be banned from opening on Anzac Day at all.
Yes, that's right. Nothing says honouring the troops like having the complete inability to buy groceries to feed your family for an entire day. But don't worry, New South Wales Premier Chris Minns says the important things will still be available.
Cafes and pubs are exempt.
The footy will still be on.
But when it comes to poker machines, people can go for gold.
How New South Wales is that? But don't worry, the New South Wales Premier shook it off.
I know that there's a criticism that says, well, you can go and have a beer with your friends, but you can't go to Woolies and buy baked beans or something. Look, there is a difference between the two things.
Yes, they are very different. One involves stopping your kids and pets from starving to death, and the other involves getting pissed with your mates. A very, very subtle difference there. Anyways, I hear New South Wales is working on a compromise measure in which on Anzac Day, the pokie machines will spit out warm baked beans. Yum yum. Moving on to September, and Labor leader Bill Shorten announced his retirement from politics to go and become Vice-Chancellor of my old uni, the University of Canberra. And didn't he sound excited?
And I've got a chance to help people at a university fulfil their potential and thereby fulfil the potential of Australia.
Yes, look at all the potential that's come out of the University of Canberra. Just look at me. So much potential. Everyone's happy all the time. Anyways, moving on to October, and the housing crisis came into focus when this happened.
Anthony Albanese is the proud new owner of a Central Coast beach house worth more than $4 million.
Yes, Albo bought a house, and not everyone was happy.
One source is likening the move to Scott Morrison's holiday in Hawaii during the Black Summer bushfires.
Yes, how dare the Prime Minister of this country own a house he plans to live in one day. The nerve of him. But he is going to have some fancy new Central Coast neighbours.
Tennis legend John Newcombe is nearby, so too model Jen Hawkins. And across the road, Rob, the landscaper.
Come in, Albo. I have a Barbie.
Yes, you got to love Australia where the tradies are up there with the models and the professional athletes, and why shouldn't they be? Have you seen their day rates? But don't worry, Labor is concerned about the housing crisis. Just ask Federal Housing Minister Claire O'Neill.
We want to bring house price growth into something sustainable.
Why don't you want to be seeing house prices drop? Because if you're looking to get into the market, if you're a young person looking at what's ahead of you, you definitely want to see house prices come down.
Well, that may be the view of young people. It's not the view of our government. So I have a strong view. Our government's policies are not going to reduce house prices.
Put that on an election poster. What a selling point to younger voters. You think house prices are unaffordable now? Well, we want that to continue forever. Meanwhile, the Labor New South Wales State Housing Minister is equally as out of touch.
What do you reckon is a reasonable price to pay in rent for a two-bedroom flat in Sydney?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of depends where in Sydney. I mean, Sydney's a big city. I mean, a couple of $100, right?
What planet are these political leaders on? I mean, I'd say planet landlord, but landlords generally know how much they're getting paid in rent. Meanwhile, no one was more out of touch this year when it came to giving housing advice than the South Australian government.
The state government's apologised to a mum and her disabled son after a shocking blunder by a public servant. Facing eviction from their Woodville home, the family was advised to dream up a new one or buy a tent.
There were like some spells for how to create a house, how to send out the need for a house into the universe, how to wish a house, yes, so how to bring a house into being, I guess.
Okay, a couple of points. First of all, one, that's really bad advice. I think scientifically unproven to work. And second of all, if you're going to manifest a house anywhere, why the hell would you manifest one in South Australia? Come on, guys. Anyways, moving on to November, and it marked the downfall of a radio talkback king.
He was one of Australia's most powerful media figures. But tonight, veteran broadcaster Alan Jones is facing serious sex charges. The 83-year-old accused of 24 offences against 8 victims.
He's had to surrender his passport. He can't approach the airport.
Wow, they're even worried about Alan Jones assaulting an airport? A lot of people in the media stood up to defend or vilify Jones, but Sky News' Andrew Bolt had the most unique take.
Now, I thought the official Jones story was inspiring. He's a gay man who went from teaching to coaching the Wallabies, our national rugby union team, to being a speechwriter for Prime Minister Malcolm Fraser, and on to stratospheric success and wealth in radio. A gay man becoming the immensely popular voice of Struggle Street Australians. I thought it was great. I mean, to me, that smashed the idea that Australians are basically homophobic.
Ah, yes. Who can forget famous queer icon Alan Jones? That's what he was known for. Yes, forget your Ian Thorpes or Troye Sivan's or even the Babadook. Alan Jones is the true face of queer progress in this country, according to Andrew Bolt. And I mean, he's right. Who can forget every time you've walked down Oxford Street the last 20 years, you've heard this pumping out of all the nightclubs.
Now, right across Australia, Alan Jones.
Yes, it is at 22.5 to 6 on Friday, May 29.
Anyways, moving on to December and move over Santa Claus because it's Albo and Labor handing out the Christmas gifts.
The Prime Minister has made a major pre-election pitch to families promising cheaper childcare.
Yes, finally we're getting cheaper childcare in Australia. So, what's it going to be? Is it going to be universal $10 a day childcare like in Canada? Or maybe it'll be entirely free again like it was under ScoMo during the pandemic. What radical policy is Albo proposing?
He'll scrap the activity test so childcare subsidies aren't allocated depending on how many hours parents work.
The current subsidy rates will remain.
Okay, so it appears nothing's really changing except for the activity test, which is something I know, but geez, even for a government known for doing nothing but tinkering around the edges, this is some mighty fine edge tinkering they've done here. But thankfully, the handouts didn't stop there.
A re-elected Labor government will take 20% off student debt for everyone who has one.
Yes, Albanese is imitating the student debt waiving policies that worked so well to get Joe Biden re-elected, while simultaneously not making university education any cheaper. But the way things are going, Australia mightn't even need childcare or education in a generation.
Australia has experienced the sharpest drop in birth rates since the 1970s. The cost of living crisis is being blamed, with Australians delaying starting or expanding their families.
And what's the coalition's solution to all this? Well, Liberal Jane Hume has one idea. It's making work more insecure.
We've said that we'll redefine casual back to its original definition because that's actually adding inflexibility to our workplace practices, not improving it.
Are they going to get a pay cut?
We want to see sustainable wage rises that are backed in by productivity.
But will you repeal that law and will they have a pay cut as a result?
We'll be reviewing industrial relations laws.
Sorry, kids, I know you dreamed of getting a paid sick day one day, but not if the Liberals win the next election. Anyways, in summing up the year in politics in 2024, we've got two main political parties who don't want to do anything to fix the underlying systemic issues making life impossible for young Aussies. We have a Greens party with no power that wants to do a hostile takeover of the Reserve Bank and whinges constantly and constantly folds. And then we've got the NIMBY Teals who don't want any housing built anywhere near them. Right, Zoe Daniel?
Simply plonking high-rise development in low-rise suburbs will not fly without those really important conversations.
Yep, when looking ahead to the amazing plethora of choices in election 2025, only one word can spring to mind.
Enshittifcation.
Hi there, I'm Stefan Pazur and I'm the all-round social guy. And welcome to the segment we call Year in Review, where I sum up the year in showbiz and entertainment and maybe sport. But we'll see if those jokes make the cut. In music news, the biggest song of the year was Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. It's a good thing she knows how to spell espresso, because she'll definitely find that useful when she goes back to working in a coffee shop next year. Her other big song of the year was called Please, 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 as in please, please, please go away and stop making music. The most influential album of the year was probably Brat by Charlie XCX, the girl from the KFC song. I don't like it, yeah. Anyways, if you ask me, the original Brat isn't Charlie XCX, but Steve Urkel from Family Matters. Why doesn't he put out a rave party anthem? Oh wait, he did. Oh yeah, baby. They don't make real music like that anymore. The biggest movies of the year at the box office in 2024 were Inside Out 2, Deadpool and Wolverine, Despicable Me 4, Moana 2, Dune 2, Kung Fu Panda 4, Beetlejuice 2, and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, proving that Hollywood is still full of fresh ideas. One of the biggest sequels of the year was Gladiator 2. Sorry Hollywood, but if I wanted to see enslaved poor people battle it out to death with each other, I would have just moved to America and tried to get healthcare. One of the top TV shows of the year was Netflix Baby Reindeer, which was supposedly a true story about a wannabe comedian who gets stalked by an obsessive fan, which is kind of what we think might happen to this podcast if we had a single actual fan. Isn't that right, Dylan?
Yeah, one day.
In sports news, the Olympics took over in Paris and everyone was forced to swim in a river.
We try to don't drink it too much, but few sip, it's kind of okay.
Smells so good. Just like Melbourne's Yarra, but with floating croissants. Oh, there's one right now. The 2034 FIFA World Cup was awarded to Saudi Arabia, who were the only bidders. Because Epstein's Island wasn't corrupt enough, and Guantanamo Bay wasn't violent enough. Qualification rounds for the teams for 2034 started this week. In celebrity death news, murdering footballer O.J. Simpson died in April, which meant Donald Trump had to choose another psychopath to be his vice presidential pick.
Wow.
The showbiz tweet of the year came from the Sesame Street Muppet Elmo.
Elmo wrote, Elmo is just checking in. How is everybody doing?
Thousands letting him know that things are definitely not okay.
Thanks, Elmo. We're actually doing fine, except for when we're awake. Well, that's it for my year in review in 2024. From me, Stefan Pazur, have a great summer or winter. What is it now? Like and subscribe.
Alrighty, that's News Fighters for 2024. Big thank you to Stefan for coming around and doing his segment. And if you're wondering where I've been all year, well, I've been working on the ABC show Media Watch, and it's been a fantastic experience. I really enjoyed. I know some of you might have heard me or seen me on screen, but unfortunately, the new management of the show have decided to axe the great online segment Media Bites I've been working on, and my entire role along with it. So if anyone out there hears of any work for a wacky clips craftsman such as myself and wants to help pay off the mortgage, please drop us a line. And if you're feeling generous and enjoyed the show, feel free to buy me a coffee at the link in the show notes or at buymeacoffee.com/newsfighters. Look, I don't know what's around the corner. I don't know what's happening with Newsfighters, but please hit and stay subscribed. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on X and Instagram at NewsFightersPod. Share this episode with your friends. And if I get some funding, I might just be back with some new content in 2025. Keep fighting, and bye for now.
This is News Fighters, where we fight the news so you don't have to.
It's a league for rugby.
Irrational fear!